Hello. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Eziko. I believe we are on episode 11. And as always, I'm not alone. I am joined by my co host and partner, Coach Nandi, a relationship coach to high achievers. How are you, Coach Lundy?
I am divine. It is the festive season. We are fighting off the fatigue. Yeah, but we are still standing. So, hello, everybody, and thank you once again for joining us for another episode. Yes, we have reached a milestone number 11. So, yeah, exciting times.
Exciting times indeed. It is a big deal for us because to keep this type of content going is not always an easy feat, what with load shedding and all the challenges that you encounter. So we celebrate each milestone as we progress. But before we get started on today's topic, we just want to remind you once again to please get your tickets for our Ezigwe live conversations, which will be taking place on the 9th of December at Naledi Farm, that is located in Centurion. And what we will be discussing over there is ending unwanted patterns that keep repeating in relationships. And when we say relationships, we mean all relationships. We're talking about romantic relationships, talking relationships at work, friendships, family, all of it, you name it. So if you are somebody that has been a victim of being betrayed by people close to you, be it lovers, be it friends, be it family or colleagues who are talking to you, you want to end that, come through. We'll give you the tips and just show you how it is that you find yourself embroiled in that. If you are somebody that just find themselves being victim of being falsely and wrongly accused. You know, it's you get those people to, when a coach learned the way wherever they go, it's like you know, like if something goes wrong, everybody looks to you and you just don't know what it is that they see about you that makes them believe that you would be capable of doing something like that. So it is those types of things that we will be discussing. We will be talking about how they start, how it is that they become a thing, a pattern that follows you around, and but most importantly, what you can do to put a stop to it. So at the end of this video, we will include a link where you can go and purchase your tickets, and also please invite a friend because we promise you it's going to be tons and tons of fun. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're very much looking forward to it. And thank you so much for all your engagement, your feedback, because we take direction from you on where to go, what to do next, what you want, because we really are not here to entertain you. We are here to serve. And so it is through your feedback, it is us doing all of these things, including finding space for us to come together and discuss the things that you are saying, this is the thorn. In me, this is this thing that's making life challenging for me in my area of relationship. It's impacting the quality of life. And so we get to choose topics that we're going to talk about, where we're going to engage in based on your feedback. So thank you for that, and do keep it coming. And every time we'll just structure things around what you need, because the whole point of relationshiping is it's not going to be meaningful to either one of us if we are not loving on you the way that it matters to you. So feel free to let us know, what do you need from us? We can be able to give that to you so that we will all be fulfilled in this relationship and this dialogue that we're having. So we are definitely going to be looking forward to joining you there. We will come in our Christmas clothes. Yay! Yeah, we're very excited to meet you in person, to be able to pour into you, to be able to receive from you, and just have that beautiful exchange and communion as well, you know. So we'll see you there on 9th of December in the Lady Farm in Centurion. Please do come through.
Look forward to having you there. All right, so on to the business of the day. Our topic today is drum roll. Are you ready? So our topic today is uncovering the hidden trauma in toxic relationships. Now, disclaimer, this was and is a Coach Lundy special topic, which she will drive. So I think just to lay the ground for today's discussion, though, um, people will very often label certain relationships toxic. So before the word toxic became popular, the popular word or term was, oh, that couple is dramatic. You know, they are full of drama, which was another word for toxic, right? And toxic in this context relates to unhealthy dynamics within the relationship. Like there's things, there's patterns that this couple adheres to, which maybe, I don't know, contributes to the excitement and gets the adrenaline going, but it becomes addictive. Because I think that they somehow find meaning and value from that toxicity. So an example of this, anybody can think of a couple, young or old, who we know every weekend they will be fighting and chasing each other down the street or threatening to beat the living daylights out of each other. Like, you know, it's those types of things. I mean, it goes from the least extreme to the most, right? Think of any toxicity, we are talking about it. So, Coach Lundy, you are saying that there's more to the toxicity that we see on the surface, and that there is usually hidden trauma underneath all of this. Please just break it down to us so that we understand it and we just get a clearer picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah, ne? So yeah, there really is more to relationships than meets the eye. And this is not just a select few relationships. It's relationships across the board. In
Mm,
every relationship, there is more than meets the eye. That's
mm,
why having these conversations, the number one thing is we are trying to transcend and surpass superficiality. So this conversation is an exercise on that, where we are transcending superficiality. We're looking beneath the surface, because what we see on a surface level, it's like an iceberg. There
mm,
is stuff that is underneath that is producing, not even an iceberg. Let's look at it as it's like a plant. There's
mm,
roots underneath that is producing the fruit or the blooms on top. And
mm.
a lot of people are unaware
Yeah.
of what is lying beneath the surface. And in toxic relationships, it's because what lies underneath the surface is trauma. It is
Mm,
emotional, it is psychospiritual wounds that are
mm,
lying under the surface, that have been suppressed, that are unconscious, that are inherited. So sometimes we don't even know, because it's not what we've done, it's what we've
mm,
inherited. And so it's worth looking into if you are in the habit of attracting or having unwanted experiences keep reoccurring in your relationship. So in fact, this is such a coincidence, I'm gonna say, for lack of a better word, that we would have this conversation while we are heading. It'll lay a nice groundwork for
mm.
our live session, because we'll be speaking and deep diving into how do you end. So today we'll expose and unpack the most common traumas, and then when we meet at Naledi Farm, then we'll be able to really deep dive into the healing
Mm,
aspect. So, in general, we have these experiences
mhm,
that keep repeating. You know how they say that history will repeat itself until you learn the lesson or whatever, ne? So we all have those experiences in our relationships. And these experiences hit when we meet our disillusionment in relationship. And all disillusionment is your ideals and your reality clashing.
Yeah.
So you had these ideals and desires and expectations and formulated plans, and then reality comes and just yay, it's like you're
Mm,
carrying a nice tray, reality comes and hit that thing and it just flies all over the place.
mm,
And because we don't know what's happening, then we are unable to deal with it and navigate it. And then we become dramatic because we are
mm,
now chasing the ideals that have spilled on the floor, trying to pick it up. Some of it is unpickupable. We
mm.
blaming, each other. It's just, it becomes a mess. And then again,
Yeah.
that's what we experience as the toxicity. So today we're going to be unpacking why. Well, how does that happen? Where does it come from? That's the type of conversation that we are going to be having today.
Mm, mm. Interesting. As you are speaking, Coach Landy, you are making me think that this is not only limited to romantic relationships. As long as there is a relationship, it doesn't matter in what context, these things do exist and are usually triggered by certain things. So if you have been in a relationship long enough with somebody, there will be things that trigger which the cycle of toxicity. Like, for example, some people know that month end is a huge trigger. Month end, because people have gotten paid, and if there's issues around money, the handling or mishandling, therefore everybody, even the children within the home, even start to expect that, oh, it's month end, it's going down. They brace themselves for the arguments, for the fights, whatever. So what are the most common toxic traits that you see within relationships, Coach Lindy? And what are some of the triggers for them?
Well, I'll start with the one that keeps me in business.
Yes, please.
One that keeps me in business.
Yeah.
Independence.
Mm.
Independence and this intense need or pattern for self-sufficiency when you
Mhm.
are secretly wanting to be relieved or and taken care of, but you just
Mm.
cannot, life of you, release the independence and the need to just um, be your own person, so to speak. And
Yeah.
this shows up in trust issues. So if
Yes.
your relationships has a lot of trust issues, like every person you get into relationship with is trust issues, you end up feeling like the nagging partner, the partner that wants to know every little detail, micromanaging your partner. You turn your partner into projects, all in the attempts of gaining some control
Mm.
so that
Mm.
you are seeking safety for you to let go of this intensified independence, because you go into relationships seeking that interdependence, but because of trust issues that come up, which
Mm.
are a symptom of abandonment again.
Mm.
Abandonment is one of the most common,
Yeah.
because just as Black people, speaking as
Mm.
Black people, we experienced abandonment not just because our parents had chosen to leave us, but because the
Mm.
system and the culture we grew up in forced our parents to abandon
Mm.
us as children. So abandonment is a really common wound, and it's what pushes most of us into independence in the first place, because we are forced to step into roles that are even beyond our years. We're forced to grow up quickly, to step into roles and responsibilities that are outside of our scope as children in our childhood. And then we carry that all over the place with us. And so then when we are now relating as adults, né? Because our expectations went unmet all the time because of the inconsistency or the absence of key caregivers in our lives. They had to go work. They were, oppressed by the system in some or other way, and then we experienced an absence. Then in our little brains, that absence was articulated as many different stories, ranging from I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, because even at that time, we are having the experiences, but we don't have the education. We don't have the correct and the accurate information of what is really going on. And so we are growing up in responsibilities. We are growing up in the roles we play, but we're not growing up in wisdom and knowledge and accurate information. And so we develop this intense independent, being sufficient, because our longing and our desire to be taken care of is always going unmet because of the absence. When that happens, we develop where it's supposed to be active love, it's supposed to be active excitement, it's supposed to be active significance. That stuff is drained out. It's drained out of us, and all we know is the opposite spectrum of these emotions: the fear, the worry, the anxiety, and that's how that shows up. So you have, like, in my practice, I see high achievers who, for the life of them, do not understand. They people are educated. So the new term is self-sabotage. So a person will come, oh, coach, no, I'm self-sabotaging again. I have trust issues. My boyfriend doesn't communicate. My partner doesn't want to communicate at the level that I want them to communicate, because you're looking for this connection in their presence. And immediately when a person isn't showing up as consistently as you want them to be showing up, because they are consistent in something, it's just that they're not consistent in what you want them to be consistent in. And it's that perception of their inconsistency that creates what you call, or what they perceive as, nagging. Then we have these avoider and pursuer dynamics in relationships, where it's like one is always the chaser and one is always the avoider. It just creates that mess and that drama that you were talking about in the relationship, because there is this trauma of
Sure. And as you are saying this, when Coach Landy, it is truly trauma, because think of a 4 or 5 year old little boy or girl. Festive season is here. People will be going home, who has a mom who works away in the cities, and all they are told is that mom is going to work, but there is no communication in between. You see her twice, 3 times if you're lucky in a year, right? And maybe when they do arrive, all of your little desires that you were daydreaming that you're going to be doing A, B, and C with mom, when she comes, she's not as warm and as welcoming, and it's just, cold and distant. And that disappointment builds up, and a story is formed in that 5-year-old's brain. And so whenever they meet somebody that they care for, they are already anticipating things such as disappointment, things such as rejection, things such as, emotionally cold and distant relationships. That is their kind of drama. That is how they understand intimate romantic relationships to be, because this is the blueprint, so to speak. And if somebody wants to be the opposite of that, this is where the self-sabotage comes in. Instead of welcoming it, they'll push it away because it's scary. It's scary that, oh, I'm going to let you in, and just as I'm starting to enjoy it, you're going to do what all the rest of them did. So I guess it's where the root of the drama, of the toxicity is, where people now start creating situations to chase the other away, simply because they are afraid that if I open up my heart to you and trust you, you're going to disappoint me while I'm up there enjoying my high, and I'm going to fall and land on my face. Ah, it's so traumatic, man. I mean,
And that's exactly what creates the gap for many high
mm,
achievers in love and success. Because they've developed this need. And as an abandoned child,
mm,
I had this wound, and it was yo most of my life,
yeah,
um, and so we develop, because we have this need for reassurance that we didn't get
ah,
as children, because reassurance is a form of nourishment for a
mm,
child's spirit. So we
mm,
didn't get reassurance. So we are underdeveloped in that
mm,
sense of being confident in who we are, of being confident in our significance, of being trusting of our own importance. So we
mm,
develop the story and the belief that we are hard to love. Why? Because every time I need my father, my mother, or whoever I want to come through for me, it always seems like they need to jump mountains. And so we then develop this thing of we are difficult to love. We
mm,
expect people to move mountains. The reason why
mm,
we self-sabotage is when there's no longer a mountain there, we don't believe it's real. Because all our
mm,
life, people have had to move mountains to show up for us. And
yeah,
so when there's mountains now, because we no longer in the situation that we were in when we were that old, we don't trust that it's real, because where's the mountain? And so that's why we chase the success, because we want to move the mountains. We want the difficulty in love. We want to earn. So when it comes easy, it's not safe.
it's not.
And then that's where that self-sabotage comes in. You have no idea how many people we have the conversation and we have to work through the consistently reminding them, you already have the relationship you want. You already have
Mm,
the relationship you want. You have arrived. You are there. You have arrived. You are there. Stop chasing. Because they
mm,
feel like they consistently need to work for it. If they are not
mm,
if they are not earning it, then it's not going to last. Because
yeah,
when those situations happened, they did not know why there was the distance, why there was the absence. And so, because they felt powerless and they didn't know what to do, and for most of us, reassurance came when we did certain things that pleased the
yes,
people that we look up to. And so we
yes.
take that pattern of wanting to please and we bring it into our adult relationship, because we want to earn as place
Mm,
in their heart. We want to earn. We want to um we want to display a level of significance that will give us the right to have
mm,
this person's adoration, to have this person's love. So we consistently are looking to earn love. And it was a thing for me. Like, it was a big thing for me, even with my husband, even with my children. There was a
yeah,
time when love was all around me, but I couldn't feel it no matter how hard they tried, because it was
yeah,
so deeply embedded in me that I am
yeah,
unlovable. I am hard to love because, hey, the one person that made me disappeared on me. So how can you even possibly say that you love me. And that is that's the unseen forces, that's the invisible stuff, um
Yeah.
those unseen wounds that we are working through and we are dealing with, that create these patterns where we even self-abandon because we're
Yeah.
trying to people please, and we keep ourselves stuck in being miserable, which is now the second trauma, is the fear of loss. We
Mm.
fear so much that we keep ourselves from having in order to avoid loss. And then yeah, we
Yes.
stay not having. And then that becomes a frustrating reality. But then the having is too risky because it might come with a loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo, if there's one thing I can say for sure, without a single doubt in my mind, is that as the Black race, male, female, heterosexual, homosexual relationships, I don't care. I would even put my neck on the line and say 99.9% of us do have an abandonment wound in one way or another. And I say this because people would just automatically assume that one would have to be physically and literally abandoned to feel it. People feel abandoned with both parents present in the house, but emotionally, there is such a distance. There are mountains between them. You never felt like you never felt that close, intimate connection with your parent, you know? So other people would even dismiss somebody who says, I have an abandonment wound because they'll be like, oh, but you grew up with both parents. What do you mean? You know,
Exactly.
where
Exactly.
you had so much in, talking about material things. But they wouldn't understand. We see it all the time when children of prominent people in society who grew up with everything they could ask for materially are having such big issues, and people look at them and like, what is the child's problem? Because they had everything growing up. They may have had the things, but did they have the emotional connection? Did they feel loved? Did they feel understood? So, and I feel that when people get into relationships, adult relationships, with the intention to build, this is where most issues start coming up because people just have this very deep rooted fear of being abandoned, and I think it is the root cause. And we are focusing so much on the abandonment root because it manifests in so many different ways. The other time we had an episode on ghosting, and I can't remember if that made it to the recording, but you and I were talking about underneath the ghosting, the people who will disappear on people, is abandonment. Abandonment is the root of what we now see outwardly as ghosting, because you have opted to leave someone whereas you had made an agreement to be something or to be in something, and you just don't tell them, just leave them. They won't know what hit them. And the people who do the ghosting are usually victims of abandonment themselves, so it goes very, very deep. And
It,
for me, my opinion, it forms the basis of all other emotional needs, you
mm,
know.
and a lot of mental health issues when I know a lot of, there's this trend, yeah, manje,
Mm,
which is causing huge arguments amongst people, of the people that are becoming healers,
mm,
izangoma, and all of
yeah,
these things.
yeah.
Because what you're talking about, that I may not have experienced it because my
Mm,
parents were there, my family was there. But
mm,
because it is now a pattern in the collective consciousness of my
mm,
being, It becomes an ancestral wound. And
Mm.
so I cannot heal it or pinpoint it in my own physical life experience, trying to heal it, then people have to go that route. Yoguba ama spiritual healing and all of these things, because it goes that deep. You know, it is such it's a pattern that is embedded in our identity now as a Black
Mm.
nation. It's
Mm.
abandonment. It's a trauma that is now embedded in our. It's like if we were the people that had lived in the Garden of Eden, the fruit would have been the abandonment, you know?
Mm.
So we inherited that fall. The
Yeah.
fall of
Yeah.
man would have been the abandonment. And so we inherit that. It has become a sin that we are born into. And
Yes.
such a
Yes.
pattern for so many of us that in because it's generational now,
Yeah.
because it's a pattern, because it's a way of identifying, it's
Mm.
even manifests in things like having children born in cesarean and being separated from the mother for 8 hours after being born. That's an experience of abandonment that somebody has to, it's now become something like a rite of passage. I will
Mm.
experience that abandonment during that 8 hours where I am separated from my mother, because the first thing I need is to be held and cuddled and all these. So we have all of these complications which become spiritual manifestations of this wound, because now it has become an imprint. It has become an identity imprint in us. So anybody who's everybody just because of who you are as a Black person now finds ways to manifest itself into your life. And it's as simple as that, that your parents have always been there. You've never known abandonment. You've never been exiled or separated from them. But because of who we are,
Mm.
fetal distress, one is
Hey.
passing out, one is in a coma, there's no bonding time for prolonged
Mm.
periods of time between the mother
Mm.
and the infant. And
Mm.
that's just what happens. The father isn't given the baby to bond with them, but now we experience abandonment in even just in our entry
J.
into life. Um, People go being sent to boarding school, our parents thinking they are giving us the best options in life. Now we're experiencing abandonment because it will find its way, because now it's become a collective wound. It
Mm.
finds a way to manifest itself so that
Mm.
we all get the opportunity to heal.
To
That's
heal.
how.
Yes, as you are saying this, talking about that 8 hour separation, and that Kemanje breeds what? Anxiety. Hence, we have a nation of anxious people because we don't all respond the same way. One infant will just fall into sadness and just be like, whatever, disillusionment, and then she's always been an independent child. The
Mm,
emotional detachment started there. And then you'll have another one who will anxiously be looking for the mother, looking for, and then this child grows and becomes,
attention seeker.
like, anxious, 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 anxious. Hence, I say that abandonment is the bedrock of all these emotional wounds. It is where everything starts. And going back also to your point of people becoming healers, sangomas, because there was an era in our history and across the diaspora in the Black race where we had to abandon our essence. We were forced to abandon who we are, Ubuntu Betu, where the only thing left to do was to be scraped off, the melanin of our skin, but you were persecuted for doing anything that made you Black. So this is why, because we abandoned, whether, voluntarily or for circumstances. So all of this, as you say, all of these things are coming up now so that they are healed. We reconcile that which was lost to our reality right now. And sizivume, because honestly, that's all it takes. A lot of people who find themselves undergoing these spiritual journeys, the minute bevuma, bamukela, all their problems are solved. It just needed them to do that, to say yes, to acknowledge with yes, this is who I am. This is, and most of them find that life goes on pretty much and they don't have to stay bound. Of course, situations vary, but just on the whole. So it is very interesting, Coach Lundi. So apart from abandonment and the independent people, I laugh because I thought, well, I fell into that category. And I can tell you that was a major issue in a very key relationship of mine, where two independent people came together and had serious challenges merging and finding a way to coexist as a couple and build a life. So, what is a second common one that you see?
So the abandonment, it's right at the base, like you were saying, because it speaks to our survival. Yeah. It threatens our survival. It violates, it restricts us in meeting our survival needs. Then once you've acquired your survival needs through your independence, and you are able to be self-sufficient through your independence, now you face the second layer, which is the second problem, which is now the fear of loss. Now I have given it my all, and I've acquired all my independence, and I am self-sufficient, I'm self-sustainable. I don't need these people. I don't need anybody else. I'm self-sustainable. Then the biggest thing now, the driver in this whole existence of yours, is the fact that when I lose any of this, it's game over. So the threat of survival doesn't go away, even when you've made all your acquisitions. So my speciality is helping people close the gap. But what are the things that widen this gap and create this gap? So we'll work through the abandonment stuff. Then we'll get to, why did you feel the need? Okay, now you're self-sufficient. Now the fear is releasing independence so that you can embrace interdependence and even codependence at the very least. But people fear that because this, again, thing of, can there be a coexistence? Because we are not used to a coexistence. I had to exist like this because there was an absence over there. So I don't feel safe in coexistence. That's why the struggle with having both love and success and financial prosperity, because can there be coexistence? So now it's this belief that in as much as I have two hands, I cannot carry with both of them, because what if the shoe drops? And then there's the fear of loss. And then we keep ourselves from not having, because we are afraid that, what if I then lose? If I lose, then I go back to the bottom of the food chain, got abandonment. And I don't want to go there. So now the fear of loss is driving the show. That's the second trauma.
Yay, kwaze kwanzima. And again, I can relate. One of the biggest fears I had when I was married, and one of my, I don't know what to call it, driving forces or whatever, but one of my biggest fears was becoming a widow. Um, like I don't know where the hell that came from, but like I was just like, oh, this man had better not die on me and make me a widow, not after all that I had to go through to secure this relationship and find myself in this type of committed relationship, you know. Little did I know that it was that fear of loss. I did not. And then I remember then saying, okay, fine. If it must happen, then I at least want to have a say on his, how he departs the world, like think about it. So this was before I entered into marriage, and I was already thinking of the end, of
So,
sure.
so you try to protect yourself by
Yes.
attempting to control
Yeah.
circumstances and outcomes and create predictable outcomes. And so
Yes.
when you are being driven by the fear of loss, you are the one that, oh, I'm such a control freak, Mina coach. I
Yes.
know, no, Mina, I'm such a control freak.
Yes.
At the same time as you being a control freak, you are an avoider, but you don't want
Yes.
to admit that you are an
Yeah.
avoider because what you cannot control, you choose to avoid.
Yes. So so I was the girl who was like, I'm never gonna get married. Then I met this guy and he said marriage matters to him. And I was like, I really like, and but because I loved him, I was like, well, I'm not planning on being with anybody else anyway. So how about it? You know? And so, but then now the question, oh, so in my mind, this wasn't even a conversation. Did we have I think we did, where I was like, and then I started going into these scenarios in my head where I was like, okay, yo, if I refuse, let's say I'm with this guy and I spent like years with him, and then in the end, I would have spent all this time with him, and then something happens to him, and then he dies, and then his family will come and take him away from me because I'm not recognized formally, blah, blah, blah. Yo, I can't have that. So let's formalize it so that I at least have rights to do what I want to do and maybe give him the send off that he wants because maybe his family would not be aware of his vision. Like, I cannot for the life of me understand what death had to do with me entering into. But it was such a driving force. And again, I can see now that it came from the fear of loss. I did not want to get into a commitment because I feared losing in any way or form, whether through separation, divorce, which happened ultimately, or death. And so when, so yeah, what do? You anticipate and you act ahead and you do what you can and because you must find you ready, you must you know I laugh because it's stupid if you think about it, but hey, these fears are real for people. These are the
Mm.
things that determine how your life will look. These are the things that will determine if you will ever find yourself in a meaningful relationship or not. This is why people end up with people they don't love, because they convince themselves that at least if I don't love them that much, then it won't hurt as much if I have to lose them. It
You
sounds
know,
stupid when we say it,
another
but a
thing when
lot of people do that.
in what creates, and to answer the how do we get and why do we do that?
Hmm.
Um, in our experience, we are affected not by the stuff that happens to us, but
Hmm.
the stuff that also happens in our presence or in our proximity.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
you may not have had a direct loss that
Hmm.
devastated, but you were able to experience a devastation of a loss, the wound, you carry the wound of loss, and you know it very well because you witnessed it, because it happened in your proximity. They say that for every person that dies in a family, at least 5 family members are devastated to their core by that loss. So again, the inheritance piece of it. So you may not be a direct victim by directly experiencing it, but you inherited it by the mere presence of where you come from, who you are, the patterns, the relational patterns in your family. Because for some of us, especially for women, because I work with a lot of women who struggle in getting into fulfilling relationships, and loss is one of the things that they struggle with. That's why they call themselves control freaks. We want to control things because we feel like if I have a grasp on it, then I'm not going to lose it. So for a woman, when you are born with all the eggs you will ever produce, né? So from day one, your children are inside of you. Whatever experiences you go through, and these children were carried by we can backtrack it all the way. So we have had that experience at that level of our existence, because I existed as the egg in my mother's tummy, which was in my grandmother's tummy when she was pregnant with my mother, because I was an egg in my mother when her mother was pregnant with her. So I inherited that experience. In that way, at that level, I had that experience. And so that's why I have that trauma. I may not have experienced a devastating loss of knowing how to start over. I may not have of losing everything I own. But I will manifest it eventually if that trauma runs that deep. That's why the disillusionment stage in relationship is so powerful, because it brings your fears to the surface. It is that space where we get to change and transmute these experiences and heal the stuff in us. When our ideals and the reality clashes, because your ideal is, I want to get married, I'm willing to get married. So you wanted to be accepted, Wena. You wanted partnership, you wanted belonging, which is the next wound. You wanted belonging, which then in you carried the fear, the third level now, from you have this fear of loss, but what's there? Where does that one come from? It comes from your fear of rejection. So I don't want him to reject me by dying on me. I don't want him to reject me by divorcing me. So I'm going to find a way to protect myself from that. And then we manifest all of these beautiful things that we put ourselves through. All the drama in Islam. Yeah. Yeah.
Yo,
Now,
I know.
fear of vulnerability, because as you are fearing losing him, you don't even tell him. You don't tell him your fears. The
You
intimacy
don't
goes out the window.
Yes, Coach Lindy, what are you talking about? Pella, yeah.
Intimacy goes out the window when there's the fear of loss, and then it gives birth to the fear of rejection. That's intimacy out the door. Not even out the window. Pella, out the window, it may need to squeeze. Out the front door, intimacy is gone.
Yo, so
On all levels.
I know good tough got adulthood and loving relationships. So I laugh because you know I grew up hearing, and this wasn't said to me, as you say, conversations that happen around you, grown ups, you know, when you're a kid, you listen to indaba zabantu abadala and you end up hearing all sorts of things that sometimes you shouldn't even be hearing, you know. But I remember, I can't remember who, but I know it was women. It was a group of women, and this woman was planning to tell the partner something, and this women were like, no, 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 because now you'll be giving him ideas, you'll be planting. So I guess this woman was going to be vulnerable and be honest about whatever situation, you know. And I took that on to say, you know, hey, yeah, you know, there's things you can share, there's things that you, because I mean, you know, maybe this person wasn't even thinking, and now you have now planted a seed, you know, in him to start looking at you that way, whereas he wasn't even there to begin with. So, but the one thing, as you say, that we fail to see with all of that is then there's no vulnerability, and so there is no emotional connection. So I just want to also go back because these things when not coach they don't only affect women, they affect everybody, males included. I know of a lot of men who will open, well, not so openly, but you know, admit to people close to them that their choice of marital partner, i.e., the wife, was not their first choice. Ne? This is somebody who in the family they liked a lot of the times. No, man, London is such a nice girl, you know, she'll be good for you, she'll help you build, blah, 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 blah. And the man would have the love of his life. But for whatever reasons, maybe he felt that she was out of my league or whatever. She's too risky. She's too risky. So to avoid the risk and to avert the risk, they go for the safe choice, you know, thereby, as a result, emotionally protecting their hearts should things happen here, because vele vele, my heart was never in it to begin with, you know. So I'm just mainly saying this to show that this, because there's also an assumption that when we have those kinds of conversation, it's women talk, you know, it's all those things that women go through. And yet we, if you've ever been in a relationship with a male, you will know very well, if anything, those are the most emotionally wounded people around. Those people have issues, sometimes way more than we do, you know. So if you've ever had guy friends, you will know of the stories where a guy is getting married and all his friends in his circle know who the love of his life is, and it's not the one with the ring on that day. And I've always found this fascinating. I could not for the life of me understand how that came to be, you know? And I would ask my guy friends, and it took them very long. I guess they needed to trust me first before they shared the secret to say, angithi manje phela the one risky, risky in terms of my heart could be pounded into a million
In terms
pieces.
of the fear of loss, the fear of
Yeah,
rejection, all the things
yeah.
you are trying to avoid women,
Mm,
by creating these contingency plans. Because a man is not creative in that way, he will just quit and not even play the game, not even show up to the game, because that is his strategy. So your strategy is to try and control circumstances, events, and create
mm,
predictable outcomes. For
yeah.
a man, the only way to create a predictable outcome is for me to not even step in that field. Then I will know for sure that I will not lose. I will not be rejected. I will not be abandoned. I will keep my independence. Because that's what we are all wanting, I need, men and women. And the
Mm,
reason why the focus is always on the women is because of the time we are living in now. The time we are living in now is that time of restoration and emancipation and of the feminine more because when the feminine is restored and emancipated, then the masculine is able to feel the safety it requires to be able to receive healing, you know. And so that's where we are in history. That's where we are in the present moment. And so women are being more vocal about it because, unlike men, we are not so much into the avoiding. It's very painful, especially because the world has told us to be independent and chase and pursue. We listened because we wanted to avoid that trauma. So men, again, that lack of communication, that choice to be silent, that vow of silence that they uphold is also a trauma response for them. Protection and the self-preservation strategy for men that I'm just not going to talk about it. And this is the funniest thing, that many people think that women are the ones abafela ngaphakathi who don't talk, when the reality and the truth is that's men. That is a man's disease.
Yeah.
Men, Jay, suicide. What happened? They honored that vow of silence. They decided, I will. It's always so fascinating. But men are the ones that are killing themselves more than women over things that only they know.
Indoda I can't.
So so that's why we just to think. I look
You
at
are
life.
so right, because a lot of women,
because
a lot of women when I coach Londi who become widows uncover so many unknown secrets after their partners die. It doesn't matter whether it was via suicide, it doesn't matter how they died. But a lot of wives, the added trauma now of having lost someone, they end up, their grief, anger takes up a big chunk of their grief because of all the things they find out after their partners have died. The double lives, it is just so big. It is a pandemic, that thing. You talk to any widow and, you hear horror stories. Who the hell did I marry? I thought I married person A. And then at the end of his life, I find out Haibo. How did I miss all of those? When I spent years with this person. So it's very, very interesting what you're saying about the vowel silence. And it's funny because it was the thing that is drilled down onto women. When women get married, they are just told, hey, you don't go hanging your dirty laundry, blah, 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 and yeah, it's
because
interesting how
women looked up and were told that men are better than us. They are stronger. So we were trying to mimic their behavior so that we become like them. It was a protection mechanism for us. Like, you know what? If you want to thrive in life and flourish, be like a man. Shut it. And it doesn't work.
Doesn't work,
So
okay?
these are the things, and you can see that it's such little nuances. Some of them are hidden so well. Some of them are such norms that you get to understand when people say Jolo is a pandemic, because really we are walking around sick, wounded, bleeding all over the show, and we are all wondering what's going on because it looks normal. That is the unhealthiness that we are
Yeah.
breeding, perpetuating. So it's conversations like this, when we call a spade, when we call a trauma, that we start to, wake ourselves up to like, no, but Aibo, like really, then this is just a first step of starting to create the transformation and the restoration to restoring ourselves back to factory settings. That's what it's all about. Back to factory settings. Because that's not how we were created. That's not why we were created. And so that's why in our relationships, all of them, they will bring up, they are supposed to bring up these things. And when I know another misconception is when we are met with these challenges, because they come up as challenges, when we are met with, we automatically assume and think that there's something wrong that we are doing. There's something wrong that is happening in life when there isn't. This is the autocorrection. The path to healing. This is the transmutation. It's the purging out of the sickness that is happening when these things come to life and they come to light in our relationships. And so many people make the mistake of thinking when challenges come up, when these unwanted experiences, when these uncomfortable experiences happen in our relationships, we are doing something wrong or there's something wrong with the relationship. And we're purging out the toxicity, we're purging out the disease, we're purging out the trauma so that our hearts, where love is able to flow through us, has that capacity. So we're removing the blockages from our hearts, and then we're going to be able to have love flow.
I think, Coach Lundy, to your point, one thing we need to understand is that human beings are the only species whose main existence is based on correction. Our purpose in Argentina as people walking this earth is to correct all of which that is wrong. We come to earth for that very purpose, for that very reason. Uguti, for the ones that lived previously, there were things that didn't go according to plan and which are having consequences on the current generation. And if not corrected, will continue to do so. So this is the reason for our progression. Think of animals. An elephant has always been an elephant, has lived like an elephant from 100 years ago until now. There hasn't been any reason for them to change anything that they do. All they do is just adapt to circumstances. They don't, they don't have the capacity to come and change. They get here and they do what they need to do. And I think it's in us seeing, the things that we deem as failure, seeing the things like you're saying, as dysfunction, just changing our perception of them to say, no, it is a calling. We always talk about calling over here. It is a calling for us to say, okay, what is not going right and what can we do to fix it? Oh, this is rising up. And for us to understand that when certain things, when certain toxicities arise in our midst where two are gathered, they are calling for us to address them and transmute them. Transmute them meaning we change them from being this poisonous thing that is killing us into becoming something that is life-giving and nurturing, and that can also be edifying for people coming after us. So I think that in all of our relationships, and I mean, this even goes back to the home, that the relationship, the problems that your family has, exists so that they can be changed, so that they can be overcome, so that they can be addressed, so that we can move on and grow from them. This is how we progress as human beings. So that is why sins of the past will affect future generations always, so that they make a vow to say, not in our lifetime, we will change this so that our children do not get to experience what we went through. So I think it's also very important when we have these discussions for us to adjust our perception of how we look at dysfunctions, because honestly, jumping from relationship to relationship in hopes for better, I'm not saying people should stay for abuse and all of those things, but it is important for us to understand that until you stop and face whatever it is that's troubling you, it'll just, what you resist persists, they say. So it is up to us to just, and what better space to do it with it, than intimate relationships, because there is power there for people to come together with a solution on how to deal with the problem that exists. So I want to ask you about a very common and bigger one, Coach Londi: cheating slash betrayal. Because, wow, out of 5 relationships, cheating affects at least 3 couples. What is going on there? What wounds are we talking there? Like, what is the story? Because Shane, that one, ihamba yodwa, it's like, tell us what's
And
going on with
that
cheating.
one is a manifestation of the wound that is called abuse.
Okay.
What about the wound that's called abuse? It's when we experience not pain, but injury. Something
Yeah.
can hurt you, injure you. But when we experience injury,
Mm.
the person that had influence and power over us, and then their actions, which we then call betrayal, produce an injury or a wounding or scarring emotionally, physically, however.
Mm-hmm.
So cheating is a manifestation of the wound of abuse. Because when you enter a relationship with somebody, even if it was a form of earning your place by saying, earning a spot, because the reason we carry all this trauma is because we want to belong.
Mm.
We are all seeking belonging.
Mm.
And the reason why we have all of these trauma responses is because we're trying to secure our belonging.
Mm.
And when somebody that you've decided, oh, I have found my belonging, I belong with this person, you give them power over you because they have influence over your self-esteem. They have influence even over your identity, because when you say I do to somebody, now your identity changes from I mina ngunompumelelo waNkosi, now to unompumelelo waka. Your identity is shifted.
Mm.
Your identity shifts by being a girlfriend. Your identity shifts by being a living partner. Your identity shifts. So they now have influence over who you be, what you do, what you get to have, what you get to not have and not do. So that you've given them that power over you. Now, there's a difference between somebody having power over you and having and you maintaining your own sovereignty. There's a difference between that. But very few people go deep enough to know the difference between the two. And so, because we don't understand that we remain sovereign beings, even when somebody has influential power over us, we relinquish our sovereignty and give the person sovereignty over us. When you hand over your sovereignty, what you are ultimately saying is, this is how people get scammed, né?
Mm.
And
Mm.
cheating is a form of scamming.
Mm.
Like, sorry to put it so loosely, but cheating is a form of scamming. Somebody scams you when they cheat on you.
Yeah.
When somebody scams you, a lot of the time they say, give me what you have, and I'm gonna give you more of what you have. So in a cheating partner says, give me who you are, and I'm gonna make you more of who you are and better who you are. Because you have this idea of I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I'm hard to love. All of these little traumas that we were, well, not so little, all these significant traumas coming together. And then you are saying, if I give it to you, then you will change it. And then they scare me. Because nobody can give you what you are. You are already that. But if you don't identify who you are, then you are going to be scammed and betrayed. Because all that happens is you have been disillusioned on the fact that your identity does not depend on them. Your power and your sovereignty does not depend on the influence that they have over you. Their influence does not make them superior and does not make you inferior. And the fact that we almost take it as one-sided, because it's two-sided. You have as much influence over them as they have over you. But because you're feeling inferior, then they violate you because you've subdued your own power. You've relinquished your power. It's like Satan coming, because a lot of us were brought up to believe in Satan. It's like Satan coming and saying, I'm going to make you a child of God. That's how crazy it is. That's how I explained it to my daughter, because I had to explain it at teenage years. So I was like, yeah, boys will scam you. If you allow them to say, I'm going to make you a pretty girl, I'm going to make you lovable, that's a lie. You already are and have all of those things. You don't need them from a boy. So thank you very much. So that's how we get into these things. At the core of it, at the simplicity of it all. That's what happens.
You know what this makes me think of?
Betrayal and the wound of betrayal, because I want us to understand this very well. In our experience in relationships serve the purpose of restoration, to restore us back to our glory. And the purpose of being in relationship, we all know it, that's why we want it, is to experience and live in the fullness of our glory. That's what we all come in there for. Ne? And then we get caught up in all the things that the relationship says. Oh, by the way, this is interfering with the glory. Check it out. We get caught up in that. Because the relationship is saying, hey, your fear of abandonment is messing with the glory here. Hey, please, that's this week's garbage. Take it outside. Let the garbage truck take it. We get so caught up in that. And then now we miss the opportunity for glory. The reason why no matter how much you get hurt, you never give up, you keep going back for more. It's because you know the promise of relationship is, I will experience glory. But what do you do every time a relationship shows you what's standing in the way of glory? You get caught up instead of checking the garbage out. And then we never experience glory. But we know it's there. Keep going back.
Deep stuff. Deep stuff. You know, Coach Lendi, as you're talking about betrayal and cheating, you're making me think of something that I've always observed and have been so fascinated by. Women, especially. And I'm not saying men don't do this. I found out that actually men also do this, but they're just not as overt as women are. Hey, there are women who will do anything to be Mrs. So and so. They will do. And like they will pursue marriage. My God, it will be a lifelong goal of them. Some, after having a boyfriend for 2 weeks, say, oh, my husband, they want it that much, And I've always looked at those women and wondered to myself, yay, the only reason and explanation I have, and I could be wrong, is that men, where you are must not be so nice that you are willing to just go wherever, where you will be, I don't know, loved, accepted, because it has never made, so there's nothing wrong with desiring marriage. Hear me well, ne? Nothing wrong whatsoever. But when it becomes an obsession, where everything that you do, that is the end goal. You know, you meet a guy when you are redecorating his house within 2 weeks of because you are wanting to prove you are wife material. Like, hey, it becomes a thing, man. Everybody who knows this person, whenever they are single for 2 minutes, oh, guys, please hook me up with the part. Guys, what's going on? You know, why?
They are connected to the knowing of the glory that we're talking about. Their connection to the knowing of the glory is very strong. Not their connection, because they are not connected to the knowing. The intensity of the impulse of the glory. You see, as human beings, we have theoretical knowing. We came here to experience what we know in theory. We came to earth to experience the theory, to have theory come alive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they are very familiar with the theory. They don't doubt the theory. They know the truth of the theory that in relationship, in partnership, in divine union, there is glory to be experienced. They have pure belief, no doubt, and conviction on that. They know it. Now, the problem is that because of that trauma again, what do they want to do? They want to create predictable outcomes, control events and circumstances so that they can create a predictable outcome because of that fear of the unknown. Because of that fear, if I'm not familiar with it, if I don't know it well enough, then I won't be able to sustain it and hold on to it. So I'm going to control it and as much as I can so that I feel safe in handling it. Because if I don't know what controls it, if I don't know what makes it tick, then I am afraid that I will lose it. So it's that trauma coming up because love is an experience of surrender. And a lot of us, these traumas, at the core of them is what closes us off is our inability to surrender. It's not that, like, I asked another client of mine the other day, was like, no, coach, no. So I'm like, what do you want me to help you with?
Yeah.
And they said, help me with finding love. I'm like, finding love? Yes. Man, what do you mean? And no, I really just want to find love in my life. I'm ready to find love, to have love in my life. I'm like, okay. So I'm going to assume, with your permission, that you are telling me that you don't have love. So what do you have if not love? Because you're looking for love, you're pursuing love. And that's the thing. A lot of people think that they need to manufacture love. They need to construct it. When I construct a relationship, I'm constructing love. When I construct a circumstance, when I construct an image, when I construct a whatever, they think they need to construct it. But that's not the truth. The truth is, if you don't have love, what you don't have is not the love. What you don't have is your consciousness of the love. What you don't have is activity and impulse that is called love. That is lying dormant. It's asleep in your life and in your existence. You are unconscious of it. So I can never help anybody find love. I can help people activate and have love be active within themselves so that it can flow through them. That I can help you with. So when we're doing all of these things, it's these distortions and these ideas, because we were sold the idea even, Uti, go into relationship if you want to be complete. That's why we're looking for the better halves, for my other halves, because we've been told we are half.
Yeah.
So now we want to have full experience because we know theoretically that we are not half beings.
Yes.
So now, however, we've been told, ukuze ube a whole, you need to go find another person and partner up. It's
Waze
not true.
wangenza umuntu mntwana abantu. Waze wangenza umuntu. What were you
And
before? Always my question.
so it's all these little distortions that feed the trauma, that feed the wound. So the work that we're doing and the work that we're inviting people to come and engage with us in on the 9th of December is the work of deliberate and conscious restoration, like waking up to the truth. For some of us, that's all it takes, just acknowledging and learning the truth. That's all many people need, to just know what is the truth, because the truth will indeed set us free. But it's not just, what does the truth will set us free mean? It means the truth will set the love free, the love to flow through. The love will be free to flow when you know the truth. So a lot of us don't know the truth. So we're having these conversations because we have been given our cross to bear, which is to expose as much of the truth as we can.
Yeah. But see, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off because it'll challenge those beliefs that you hold.
There's that reality too, hey, and it pisses all of us off.
Ultimately, it will set you free.
If you're watching and you're thinking, hey, I know, listen, we've all been pissed off by the truth.
Yes, but first it'll piss you off. It'll shine a light on all the untruths, all the beliefs that you've been holding, which do not support what love is, So this is the pissing off part. You'll feel with hypo. All this time, I thought this is what I have to do, or this is what I have to be in order to. It wasn't like so. That's the pissing off part, and then you'll discover, oh, so I'm okay as is. Oh, that's the freedom part, setting you free to, Yeah. And yazi wena Coach Lendi, I brought up the women, like I said, not only women, there's also guys like that who are so into yabona wanting marriage, because it is a toxic trait that exists where guys are like, Hybo, I've only known this girl for 2 weeks. Already I can't recognize my own house because I woman is updating, and so it's for the person, it's for the woman who does that. Because I want you to understand.
And the man, Nunu, who honors and upholds the vow of silence so much that instead of telling the woman who to stop changing my house,
exactly
because he doesn't communicate. He avoids conflict because he fears rejection and loss.
Yes.
It comes up, we're pointing out these things because we want to show you that it will up everywhere in everything you do. Your entire being becomes a consistent and constant trauma response. And so you never really experience the beauty of life. And we are doing this because we've given our traumas enough nurturing. It's time we start nurturing our healing. That's why we are exposing the traumas so that we leave them so we can start living in the mess, but live with joy in it. Find it blissful, because we cannot keep putting off living. We can't. We cannot keep putting off living. It's enough now.
Hey, yeah. And we just, what, when a Coach Lendi, I think people also just need to understand that, the sooner you can identify the things that are preventing you from receiving the love that you desire, the kind of relationship, the kind of people that you want to be in relationship with, the better and quicker you can get to living the love that you dream of. It doesn't have to live in movies. It doesn't have to be a fairy tale. It is not something that is reserved for others. It is available and accessible to all. But in order for us to experience that, you know, we ours is just to identify and remove, so that because the more you do that, the closer you get to where you want to go, you know. Yeah, so very interesting, very deep insights, Coach Lundy. And you know what? It's giving a taste of the types of things we will be discussing at Naledi Farm, but obviously going at a much deeper level than we are here. But I appreciate this so much because, like I say, you know, most of the emotional wounds and the traumas, you know, people are brought together. So that's the other interesting thing, that you attract who you are. Like attracts like, you know, people are always brought together for a reason. And yes, love is the portal through which we enter. Um, and I always say love is a scam in that way, because you are entering thinking, you know, but then you walk in and you're like, hey, so much going on here, you know. um, but people are brought together. This is my belief. People are brought together because there's a common trauma most of the time that they share, and that this relationship is giving them an opportunity to heal and transmute, you know. So no relationship is wasted. So the next time you get into a relationship, identify what is it that is showing up, that is a blockage to the love that you desire. Because even if you don't ultimately end up with that person, each relationship is a step closer to the type of relationship that you desire, you know. So don't waste an experience, guys. Let's go in there consciously. Let's see the things. Let's see, especially the recurring patterns and themes of our lives, you know. And also, do not forget to relate them back to your home experience, because most of the time, that is the source of where everything started, and you are now carrying them through in your own personal relationships. So, yeah, it was indeed enlightening, very deep and thought provoking. Thank you, as always, Coach Landy. Yeah, you wanna tell your people to join you at Naledi Farm before we say goodbye?
This is what I want to end with, and this is what I want to invite you to Naledi Farm for. Healing isn't as complicated as many of us perceive it to be. It really is. And I'm going to tell you a secret. Now, this one is for free. You don't even need to buy a ticket. I'm giving it to you for free right now. When we say relationships are a gift, and relationships are God's gift to mankind. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased and it's my job and I love it. That too. But but relationships are God's gift to mankind. And you know why? Because the trauma that we spend so much time talking about, beating the drum about, explaining, deep diving, unpacking, you know, the reason we do that is because receiving healing says, when you know the trauma, you don't even need to change it. Your healing comes in identifying it, knowing it, and choosing the opposite, which is the gift. You are healed.
Hallelujah.
You don't have to go back and yay. No. You just identify the trauma and you choose different. Sometimes you don't even need to mess with it, touch it, do whatever. You just choose different to this thing. You are healed. You are living your best life. You are in the glory. That's the gift of it. Like really, this hard labor to suffering. Nothing. That's healing.
This is
but you know, get to choosing different if you don't know the contrast. We're having the conversation so that we help you identify what you choose the contrast of. That's it. That's really as healing
It's
goes.
that
So
simple.
at Naledi Farm, if you are tired of hard labor in your healing journey, because
Yeah,
really
because
when we say you ending the unwanted patterns, we are saying stop doing the things that keep you bonded to trauma. Choose different. But how do you know what choice you have? Oh, okay, come, we'll show you.
oh, trauma will keep you working. Yeah, trauma, you will work at times. I'm telling you, you will work, you will slave away for trauma. Trauma will keep you busy. Trauma is a distraction, guys. You know, if you ever believe in the devil, trauma was said is the devil incarnate because it keeps you away from all the nice things. And you know, on the
Exactly.
other side of healing, on the other things are flowing, man. Who got ease?
Just,
You know,
and you
things
don't even
flow.
get your hands dirty fighting and
Nothing.
wrestling with trauma.
Hi,
You
guys.
don't.
Do
You just need
not.
to know, oh, trauma, this is my choice. Oh, that's trauma.
Refuse.
That's the
Yazi
glory.
isn't the healing. They, like you say, hey, you become a king and a queen. You know, you just call for things and they come to you without you having to now. Hey, ungene kangaka, ungena double shifts on something that yazi. Hi guys. Okay, so if you are tired, because trauma will do that, it will suck the life force out of you, it'll age you, it'll make you angry. You will look at people will see you, but you, this one is not enjoying her life, you know. But once you cross over to healing, you gain back all of that life that you've been missing out on. Trust me. Some of us are living testimony. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
You know, so
But a joyful heart makes you, and
yeah.
sorrow literally breaks your spirit. So all we're wanting to do is lean into the joy that will make us our lives beautiful. That's all. So we'll see you there on the
We'll
night.
see
We're
you
looking forward.
there. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And once again, we will see you on the 9th of December. It's a few weeks to go now. We really cannot wait to see you there and have a wonderful
Oh,
time.
and there's also giveaways.
Mhm.
For those that we a Black Friday giveaway.
I'm giving away tickets,
Yes.
so
So it's a
keep your
total of
eyes.
4, 2 from me, 2 from Nunu, and then you can
Yeah.
be there.
Yes, yes, yes. There's
You can
another
be
one to be announcing for people that are ready to embrace their healing. People who are saying, you know what, I've had it with this trauma, so you can win a program with me where it's no longer about the trauma, but it's about what do you want, and we help you just get there so quickly you won't believe it's that simple.
I please, please. And you get to spend 13 weeks with me. So it's the ticket to the live event and then 13 weeks of group sessions on relationship mastery. Yeah. That's me on Thursday.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and we will see you next time on Go Conversations. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.